On the rooftop of a building, Gabriel watches over the city. He is a low-ranking guardian angel, and his duty is to save people from accidents while they text and drive. He appears in the back seat of their cars and, with a single touch, makes them hit the brakes in time. One day, Gabriel appears behind Arl, an aspiring documentarian who takes random gigs just to survive. That day, Arl was frustrated after being rejected from yet another job and admitted he was close to giving up. After reading his messages, Gabriel touches Arl to make him stop the car, but now he becomes worried about Arl's mental state. Later, Arl completes several tasks for the app Task Sergeant. First, he goes to a popular bakery with an extremely long line outside. He's not there to buy anything for himself, he's being paid to wait in line for someone else. After 2 hours of waiting, the employee announces there's no bread left. Arl calls his client to explain he won't be charged for the bread, but also begs them not to cancel the task, pointing out that he waited for 2 hours and deserves to be paid. Unfortunately, the client cancels the task anyway. Arl becomes even more frustrated when he discovers that most of the bread was bought by Jeff, a wealthy guy who gets priority because he's an investor. Next, Arl goes to a client's house to do laundry while a rude child keeps asking why he isn't using his college degree. Arl gets so irritated that he snaps, telling the kid he has no future and that the American dream is dead. This earns him a bad rating in the app. Other tasks include assembling someone's table and restocking shelves at a hardware store. While driving around the city for work, he still ends up with a parking ticket. Through all of this, Gabriel never stops watching him. During lunch at the hardware store, Arl is approached by Helena. She's trying to start a union to improve working conditions, but Arl isn't interested because he's just a freelancer. Helena insists he still deserves better treatment, but he believes things will never improve. That night, Arl runs into Helena at a food stand and they end up having dinner together. He tells her about his dream of becoming a documentary filmmaker, and she is very supportive. Gabriel is relieved to see Arl finally smiling. Later, Arl goes to the parking lot of a store to spend the night in his car. When his father calls, he pretends to have an apartment and pretends to care about his cousin's success. Unable to sleep, he puts on a sleep aid podcast, but it keeps getting interrupted by ads because he can't afford a subscription. Sometime later, the guardian angel's manager, Martha, gathers all angels to hear their stories. Each of them protects people from different things: tsunamis, accidents, sudden falls. One of the angels is responsible for lost souls and shares a very emotional story about helping someone rediscover meaning in life. The person became deeply grateful, and Gabriel finds himself longing for that same sense of purpose. After the meeting, he asks Martha for more meaningful duties. However, she tells him it's an extremely difficult job, and he isn't ready. Meanwhile, Arl's life continues to be miserable. Sometimes a security guard finds him sleeping in the parking lot and Arl has to beg not to be kicked out. Whenever he needs a shower, he uses the local gym. A homeless man named Leonard also uses that gym, and they often talk when they run into each other. Gabriel continues to observe him with growing curiosity. One day, Arl is hired through the app by Jeff to clean his garage, and he does the job quickly and efficiently. Jeff promises to give him 5 stars and even shares his snacks. He says he's also a very busy man, but when Arl sees his to-do list, it's full of random tasks like buying things for a party and finding a shaman. Arl says he could work as his assistant, and Jeff queries to give him a 1-week trial. Over the next few days, Arl proves how reliable he can be. He works fast and always finds creative ways to solve Jeff's random problems on the spot. No matter what Jeff asks, Arl is always ready to do it. Jeff becomes extremely satisfied with his performance, so he hires him officially and gives him a company credit card for expenses. Now, Arl can afford to stay in a motel. Sometime later, Jeff decides to inform him that he keeps a gun at home for emergencies and tells him the drawer's password. When he hears that Arl has a date, he lends him a jacket and recommends an affordable restaurant. That night, Arl and Helena have a great time together. However, when Arl sees the prices on the menu, he is horrified. It turns out the place is only considered cheap for rich guys like Jeff. Arl doesn't want to look bad in front of Helena, so they eat there anyway. When the bill arrives, Helena suggests they split it, but Ard offers to pay and uses the company credit card. The next day, Jeff asks Ard about the dinner charge on the card. Ard apologizes and explains what happened, promising to pay Jeff back. Even so, Jeff fires him. Now Ard has to leave the motel, and since he can't find any tasks on the app, he has no choice but to sell plasma. He ends up vomiting because he feels sick, while Jeff is vomiting at a cleansing ritual. That night, Ard falls asleep inside a restaurant and a waiter kicks him out. When he walks outside, he discovers his car has been towed. Seeing Ard's life fall apart, Gabriel decides he is a lost soul in need of help. He appears in front of Ard, who obviously freaks out. Gabriel explains that he knows everything about him and tells him there is still much worth living for. With a single touch, he shows Ard a vision of his future, in which he works as a delivery driver with long, horrible shifts and lives with Helena in her mother's house. Eventually, the couple gets stable jobs and moves to Texas, but their wages still aren't enough to pay for surgery for their sick dog, so they will have to put the animal down. When they return to reality, Ard yells at Gabriel, saying that the terrible life he saw is still nothing to hope for. Gabriel explains that this isn't his usual job, so he doesn't really know how to bring hope to people. Ard mentions he wants a life like Jeff's. So the angel decides he must teach him that a rich life isn't as great as people think. He touches Ard, and a bright light fills his vision. When Ard wakes up, he is inside a car in the store parking lot. But it's a very fancy car, and he is wearing nice clothes. When the security guard approaches, he is much more polite, understanding that Ard fell asleep by accident. The car's computer asks if he wants to go home and shows the route. In the morning, Ard arrives at Jeff's house. While looking around, he is approached by Jeff, now dressed casually, telling him that his tasks are already done. Ard asks whose house it is, and Jeff says it's his. After finding his own photos displayed around the house, Gabriel appears to explain that he swapped Ard's life with Jeff's. In 1 week, he will return to see if Ard learned his lesson. As the days pass, Ard is incredibly happy. He loves spending money on whatever he wants. He has Jeff do all the tasks. And working simply means going to fancy restaurants to make a few decisions for the company. If something in the house breaks, Ard easily pays for it and doesn't understand when Gabriel mentions the annoyance of small inconveniences. Eventually, Ard visits Helena, who doesn't know him in this reality. They get along immediately and go on a date at the same restaurant as before. But this time, the waitress says the dinner is free. They even kiss afterward, and Gabriel starts to worry that the plan is backfiring. At the end of the week, Gabriel asks Ard if he wants to return to his old life. Ard obviously says no. When Gabriel worries that Ard thinks he'll be forced to return, he has to admit that he doesn't have the power to do that. He can only restore things if Ard consents. That night, Gabriel tells Marta what he did, and she freaks out, revealing that Gabriel was originally supposed to help Helena. She orders him to convince Ard to switch back, and then strips Gabriel of his wings as punishment. The next day, Ard is throwing a pool party. Gabriel appears and says this isn't fair to Jeff. When he touches Jeff to restore all his memories, Jeff freaks out for a few seconds before fainting from the shock. The guests think Jeff is dead and immediately leave. Moments later, Jeff wakes up begging Ard to switch back and promises to pay him $200 million as thanks. Ard points out that Jeff spends that much on a single watch and calls him stingy. An argument starts, and Gabriel has to interrupt them to explain that Jeff won't remember anything when they switch back, because that's how Ard experienced it. After arguing a bit more, Ard agrees to switch back, but only if he can have a few more days to enjoy himself first. Jeff accepts the deal and says he can get back on his feet again because it's all just a matter of working hard. Since Gabriel lost his wings, he needs a place to stay and asks Jeff to be his roommate. They end up sharing a bed in a motel room, and Jeff starts asking questions about angels. Gabriel explains that he couldn't fly because his wings were too small. Only high-ranking angels have larger ones. The next morning, the motel manager says they need to leave. Jeff convinces him to let them stay one more day and promises to bring the money at night. Now Jeff has no choice but to start accepting delivery orders on an app while Gabriel follows him. He soon realizes how hard it is to be poor. Customers treat him badly and don't tip well. They also blame him for mistakes in the orders that were actually made by the restaurant. He is always in a rush, and other drivers get angry at him for causing traffic problems. To make things worse, many restaurants have replaced delivery workers with robots. By the end of the day, Jeff is furious to discover that the app only pays at the end of the week, meaning they can't pay for a motel. So the pair has to sleep in the car. Meanwhile, Ard invites Helena to go to Paris with him, but she refuses because she has work to do for the union. He complains and she gets upset, explaining that he may be rich now, but she's still a worker who has to fight for her quality of life. When Ard fails to understand, she leaves. Feeling depressed, Ard goes out for a drive and starts texting while driving, which causes an accident that leaves him in a coma. Soon, Gabriel hears the news from a colleague and tells Jeff that he will have to remain poor for a few more days since Ard can't give consent while he's in a coma. Jeff freaks out and convinces Gabriel that he must ask other angels for help. Later, Gabriel goes to Marta, who decides the situation is too messy and fires Gabriel. He will have to live as a human. Although Marta says she might reconsider making him an angel again if Ard agrees to return things to normal, Gabriel's body immediately begins to change. He can feel his skin sweating and something strange in his stomach. Afterward, Jeff takes Gabriel to a fast food restaurant. Gabriel has never eaten before, so he has many questions. How to know when he's done chewing? When he finally eats, he's instantly amazed by all the different flavors. He also admits he's scared, so Jeff reassures him that he has a plan. The next day, Jeff decides to visit one of his companies, hoping he can offer new ideas and get a job. However, he's kicked out without being heard. 3 weeks later, Jeff has applied for hundreds of jobs and still no company has called him back. Meanwhile, Gabriel has become addicted to the internet. Jeff then decides that Gabriel also needs a job. Soon, Gabriel finds himself washing dishes in a restaurant. When he finally receives his first paycheck, he freaks out because the government takes a big portion of it and what's left isn't enough to live on. His co-worker Felipe tells him he needs a second job and admits he has 3. Gabriel is stunned, realizing he has no time for a second job or for doing things for himself. At the hospital, Ard finally wakes up and the nurse tells him Jeff and Gabriel visited him many times, refusing to switch back to their old lives. Ard asks the nurse about some of the side effects of the coma. That night, Jeff receives a delivery request for his old house and becomes excited, realizing Ard is awake. When he arrives, Ard pretends not to recognize him and claims he has amnesia from the accident. He even gives him a pamphlet as proof. Later that night, Jeff tells Gabriel the news, while Gabriel, hating human life so much, has started smoking. Jeff keeps asking for help and Gabriel gets an idea. He was originally supposed to help Helena, so maybe if he guides her back onto the right path now, Ard will also be affected. The next day, in the hardware store's break room, one employee is tired of Helena insisting they need a union. She doesn't give up and makes a speech about doing the right thing. Gabriel suddenly appears and supports everything she says, offering some inspirational words of his own. However, when the employees realize he doesn't work there, security kicks him out. Later, the workers finally vote on unionizing, but unfortunately, the majority is against it. Gabriel watches Helena looking heartbroken on the bus and decides to get drunk. Felipe finds him drinking on the street and decides to cheer him up by taking him to a club. While they're having fun on the dance floor, Gabriel bumps into one of the drivers he saved in the past, and Felipe explains that she's his wife. Seeing the happy couple makes Gabriel realize that his work truly matters. Meanwhile, Jeff gets a message from the delivery app. Next week, they will switch mostly to robot deliveries, and Jeff's rating doesn't meet their standards. His account is terminated. Jeff starts cursing furiously, and when Gabriel arrives, he goes on a rant about the system. He can't understand how people aren't depressed all the time, and finally realizes how confusing and unfair everything is. Their moment is interrupted when the police tow his car because of all the unpaid tickets. Desperate for money, Jeff decides to go to his house to retrieve his watches. Ard is throwing a birthday party on Jeff's actual birthday, even performing Jeff's dance routine. While Jeff hides, Gabriel grows worried when he notices Ard's father and Leonard are also there, and they no longer look poor. Helena is working as a waitress for the catering service, and Ard tries to talk to her, but she says she has to work and ignores him. On the balcony, Leonard finds Ard looking miserable. Ard explains that Helena doesn't want to be with him because he's rich and that he feels guilty for having stolen all of this. Leonard points out that all wealthy people steal things to get rich and says Ard is different because he bought Leonard an apartment, food, and new clothes. Rich people usually don't even talk to the poor. Meanwhile, Gabriel eats some chocolates without realizing they're full of happy Ard. He starts acting funny and talks to a woman until he finally falls asleep. After the party, Ard convinces Helena to dance with him. She then admits she should have gone to Paris with him because fighting was pointless. She lost her apartment and is now sleeping in her cousin's car. However, she refuses to go to Paris with him now because she knows how bad things are for her people. As the house is nearly empty, Jeff comes out and opens the drawer with the expensive watches because the password is the same. After grabbing them, he tries to leave, but Ard sees him and panics, opening fire. Jeff screams in pain when a bullet hits his arm. Ard checks on him, saying that was what Jeff told him to do with the gun. This makes him realize Ard was faking the amnesia. The next day, at the hospital, Ard apologizes to Jeff and asks Gabriel to switch their lives back. However, Gabriel explains that if Ard truly wanted it, it would have already happened. Ard only wants to switch because he feels guilty, not because he believes his own life is worth living. And that doesn't count. Jeff thinks it's stupid because nobody would be excited about being poor. They think of another solution. Ard tells Gabriel and Jeff to stay in the fancy house with him. The three men relax and have fun together. Soon, Marta shows up to check on Gabriel, who says he doesn't understand how he's supposed to give humans hope when their lives are so terrible. Marta explains that a lost soul doesn't need an angel, they need another person. Gabriel doesn't understand, but Marta disappears without saying more. Later, the guys go out for tacos and Ard is surprised to see Helena. She tells him that she and her co-workers are making plans to fight for the union again. She's learned that change doesn't happen overnight, so she needs to keep fighting despite the losses. When she asks for a place to unwind, Gabriel takes everyone to the club. After some dancing, Gabriel is still sad about being a failure and goes to sit outside. Ard comes to comfort him and says he can't give up. Gabriel points out that Ard also gave up and that their situations are the same. They have no future and no place to live. But he also admits that being human has taught him many nice things, like eating, dancing, and making friends. Ard realizes that all the friends he has as a rich person are fake and that he misses the moments he spent with his family, who loved him for who he is. He tells Gabriel he's the best angel he could have had and confesses that he wants a future built with his own hands, not one that was stolen. That means he finally accepts that life is worth living. Gabriel smiles and touches his shoulder. When Ard blinks, he finds himself back on the night his car was towed. The restaurant employee feels sorry for him and offers him a ride. Meanwhile, Jeff feels lonely in the big house. In the morning, he finds all the parking tickets Ard received while working for him. Eventually, Ard tries to retrieve his car and discovers that Jeff has already paid off all his debt. Ard then calls his father and finally tells the truth about his situation. His father is very supportive and reveals that Ard's cousin was caught committing tax fraud. The next time Jeff goes to a company meeting, he announces that they are improving pay and benefits for the app workers. He refuses to continue using robots or AI, and if anyone doesn't like his decisions, he will fire them. Later, Ard gets a job as a delivery driver, just like in Gabriel's vision. However, he doesn't want that miserable future, so he quits by leaving a message on the whiteboard. The other workers feel inspired and choose to quit too. Art then begins working on a documentary about app workers and continues dating Helena. One night after eating tacos, he leaves one on the table for Gabriel. That's the end. If you've made it this far, comment B, hit the like button, and subscribe. Bye-bye.